What is going on, everyone? Today we are coming with a bit of a different video than we posted to the channel before. We are doing some rookie review. We've all reviewed 22 wide receivers from the 2024 NFL class, given them grades, and that's what the premise is. And I'm here. I'm Joe. For anyone that doesn't know, first time here with my boys from top down. We have Carter, then we have Ian, then we have Katron. We're all avid fantasy players, big best ball players, as you know, on the channel. And yeah, we're just here to dive into some players. We have some player takes for sure, definitely higher on some players than consensus, lower on some players than consensus. So it should be a fun video. I haven't really told any of them anything about how the video is formatted or what we're really doing. So it's gonna be a surprise for everyone. So let's jump into it. How this whole thing works. I already told you all about the first part, and the list of the players goes from top to bottom, displaying all of our individual rankings along with our collective grade, which is being used to rank the players. How we're gonna be speaking is the people who have graded X player the highest slash lowest will both speak on as to why they have X player graded so highly slash poorly. So that's the whole shtick. It's as simple as that. And let's get into our first player. So for our first player, our last graded player, we have Jacob Cowing, unfortunately, out of the University of Arizona. 5'11", 175. He's 23 years old. He's a senior. And our collective grade for him, which is the average of all of ours, is a 21.75. It really can't get worse than that, to be honest. Me and Katron both had him graded as the worst player in the class that we reviewed. Ian had him graded 19. Carter had him graded at 21. You can see his collegiate profile to the left under his picture. It will be displayed like that for every player. And yeah, so let's jump into it. I'll start off. I just was looking at Jacob Cowing's film. He has some good years. Obviously, he has some nice stats, you know. But he's playing in a soft ass conference, and on top of that, he just doesn't look great on film. Honestly, Jacob Cowing, like his collegiate profile looks a lot better than he is, and I feel like for a lot of different collegiate wide receivers, their profile can get boosted a lot by quarterback play, conference play. There can be a lot of different factors as to why they're performing a lot better than they should be, in my opinion. So that's kind of my thing on Jacob Cowing. I don't really think he excels anywhere on the field. He has decent speed for his size. I would like him to be a little faster. He runs around like a 4.4, and he doesn't win in the contested catch. He's not very good at contested catch. I don't really like his hands that much. So yeah, I'm a big hater. Ian, got any thoughts on Jacob Cowing?
I mean, I don't really have to defend this guy too hard. I only have a 19.
Right.
However, that being said, I mean, his attributes, if I'm going to try to defend him and you're going to throw a dart on this guy late in the class, depending on what formats you're playing, um, in dynasty leagues, he's a decent dart throw as a primarily underneath wide receiver. You look at his profile, he he's tied for 11th in this class for screen catches. Most of those coming underneath, obviously. Doesn't catch the ball deep, at least right now. Usually, when we see players with these kind of lopsided profiles, the questions are: is he incapable of doing the things that we want to see? Or that I don't say want to see, but doing things, doing the other things that we haven't seen him do. So he doesn't catch the ball deep. He doesn't run deep. Is that because Arizona didn't want him to, or because he's incapable of it? But given the physical profile, his contested catch rate is pretty low. He probably is just an underneath guy, at least at a minimum, or at best to start his career. So he's only ever going to be a dart throw, and hope that he develops a little bit more, maybe more of an intermediate or a deep game. He'll have to end up landing in the right situation on a team that can really get him the ball. But this really, like, to be honest, I mean, I think his ceiling might be like a Rondale Moore or Sky Moore, like I mean, in that vein, which doesn't really give people a lot of excitement. But you're really just kind of hoping that he can see the field. But for the 20th wide receiver in this class, I mean, we're kind of splitting hairs here on whether or not we start really like this guy. But there might be some opportunity there. We'll see.
I think that about sums it up for Jacob Cowan. So moving on, we have Javon Baker out of UCF. He is ranked 21, our second to last graded receiver, and 6'1", 208, 21 years old. He's a senior, 21-year-old senior, and our collective grade was 19.5. And Carter, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, so this one, I'm a little unsure. I know I ranked him a little highly here. I just kind of like what people say around him when they are teammates with him. I know he does have some attitude problems and he's been kicked off a team before. He's very much like a lot of people are saying around Senior Bowl, kind of like a Stephon Diggs, if you will, or like people that actually are teammates with him for a long period of time and kind of go to battle with him, love him to death, but he can rub people the wrong way a lot. He has an insane amount of confidence. He thinks he should be up there at the same tier as Malik Neighbors and MHJ, which I think is a little ridiculous, of course. His profile is pretty good, or I mean, it's not great, but his last year showed a lot of promise, I guess. And I'm just kind of wondering if maybe if he gets in the right environment with the right coaching staff, i.e., like the Steelers, where we have a strong coach that can lead him and kind of steer him in the right direction, he can continue to develop and show off all these great, skills he has, and he's got pretty good size and things like that. And hopefully, he tests well. That's kind of why I have him at 16. And depending on more film I watch and more I dig into him, I might move him up a little bit more, I might move him down. But yeah.
Ian, can you speak a little as to why you had Javon Baker ranked as your second to last, heading the rank on the dot 21?
I the small school guys sometimes can, I think, you know, they can be a challenge. I think, his big, his attribute is deep catches, deep contested catches, right? Um, so he doesn't. So we're not getting a lot of yak. We're not getting a lot of underneath stuff. That could be a one trick pony type thing. And I think in the NFL is that, and there's going to be a lot of guys on this list today that I'm going to be lower on, especially if the only thing that they do is is basically run like a two route tree. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing out of Baker a little bit. And I just think he's kind of the worst out of all of them at it. He does have a pretty good contested catch rate, which is nice, but he's got one of the highest drop rates in his class, which is just a really big concern for a guy that's supposed to be your thing. Then you need to be able to catch the ball in those situations, so that's a problem. But I think across the board is that I tend to be lower on those guys projecting them forward if the only thing you do is really run deep, especially in the modern NFL. And from fantasy production, I mean, we're getting so many points out of PPR and things like that. The home run hitters are fun, but we want home run hitters that can also do other things. Again, it goes back to what I was saying about Cowing. Is this a player that isn't capable of doing it, or a player that wasn't asked to do it? And I think in this situation, I feel a little bit more that he might not be fully capable in expanding his role as he gets to the NFL.
Yeah. Katron, do you have anything to add to that, or just pretty much agree with Ian?
Yeah, I mean, my player comp for Baker going in was just kind of a smaller Chase Claypool in both his like attitude and how he plays, and I was just kind of like, there's just nothing special about that. Like, why would you ever want Chase Claypool on anything? And like we're even seeing like the good versions of that build not being worth very much in fantasy right now with like DK, the best one being AJ Brown, and it's because he gets like what 10 targets a game. So I mean the build's just not very good in the NFL right now, especially in fantasy.
All right. So moving on to our third to last ranked receiver, we have Jalen Polk, We have two split sides on this one. Me and Carter both have Jalen Polk ranked 17th. Katron Ian both have Jalen Polk ranked 20th. And yeah, I'll start off. Jalen Polk is 6'2", 204, out of Washington. He played with Penix alongside Jalen McMillan, Roma Dunze, who everyone's so horny for. He's 21 years old, and he's a sophomore. Our collective grade for him is 18.5. His collegiate production has been mediocre, and then he definitely turned it up last year with Penix. And yeah, so I think Jalen Polk, relative to the other receivers on that team, compared to McMillan, compared to Odunze, isn't that far talent level from them. And I know that's a little controversial because people are very, very high on certain receivers on that team. And I just think that receiver core was carried by Michael Penix, to be honest. I think Michael Penix is significantly better than people give him credit for. And I think that this is a very similar situation that we're seeing to if we have to like parallel it to in like Alabama receiver core, like the famous Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs receiver core that ended up turning out to be a pretty big bust in the NFL. I think there could be a potential same situation where there's a good system, good quarterback, and it's just a receiver core that got potentially carried. So that's my take on the and like as a prospect, Jalen Polk, I mean, he has the size and speed to win at an NFL level. And like in a format like Dynasty, you'd probably want to be placing bets on him if he depending on the round he's going on, because he's 21 years old and he has the build to win at the NFL level. But it's just, I think there's better bets that you could be making, and Jalen Polk is just I'm not that crazy about him. So I'll let Carter take it over.
Yeah, no, I have the same concerns essentially. It's just going to be like a repeat of what you said. It's kind of hard to figure out whether these Washington players, like, is Penix a product of his receivers? Are the receivers a product of Penix? Are they all a product of the system, the good coach who obviously went and took over at Alabama? And it's going to be just kind of hard to dictate and decipher through that. I do like Odunze a lot. I do think Odunze is good. I mean, obviously we'll get to him later. But I think Polk's the third best receiver on the team. I think McMillan is better. McMillan was just injured and stuff, and obviously he's going to get a little bit more hype, all these receivers, since they were on like a team that competed at the national championship level. But as of right now, yeah, I'm pretty low on him. I'm probably not going to be taking any of them in best ball unless he lands in a crazy spot where he's like the only guy. And I'm willing to take a few dart throws on him in Dynasty, just depending on where he falls. I doubt he gets to like the second round, but that would be way too rich. Probably have to be like a late third, early fourth kind of guy for me for sure.
Yep. Katron, why don't you start on the Jalen Polk?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just the more extreme of what you said. I'm really in on Michael Penix. I'm going to have probably like 70% Michael Penix in the big board and little board this year. Like, just a ridiculous amount, because he goes in the last round, and I think it's just good process to pick him a lot. I'm a huge fan of Michael Penix. I'm pretty much out on every single Washington receiver. I think Odunze is just my highest, just because, like, give it a little respect, because everyone likes him. But, I mean, I think it really was Penix in the system carrying that team, and I think the receivers are going to struggle at the NFL level.
Ian, you have anything to add?
I think Polk is going to make us all look dumb.
You have him ranked 20.
So do you have anything to add on Polkin?
No, not so much. I think we pretty well covered it. I do. There's some thoughts I have about Penix and the offense, but I think given the way the other guys are talking, I'd like to save it for when we get to Odunze, because I think that'll be a really interesting conversation.
Dude, Ian has Odunze at like 4.
Ian's a pretty big fan. I guess we'll have to wait and see where he had him ranked. I will say he's a big fan though.
It's just an HJ.
Imagine. So up next, fourth from last, ranked number 19, we have Ricky Pearsall. And Ricky Pearsall is 6'1", wide receiver, 190, out of Florida, 23 years old, senior, collective grade 17.25. His collegiate production has just gotten better year after year in Florida, but it has been a relatively slow breakout. Ian, why don't you start us off? Because you are highest on Ricky Pearsall. Why don't you tell us the bull case for him, somewhat?
Yeah, I mean, he is a little bit on the older side. There's no doubt about that. But he's got really good footwork, and he's a smooth route runner. He has an incredibly low drop rate, which makes him a really sure-handed wide receiver. Those are things that I like, especially from the older wide receivers. Um, so I think he's going to end up being a consistent and reliable target from day one for a quarterback, especially if he ends up with kind of a veteran quarterback where he can develop a good relationship with. I think he's going to end up being a really reliable wide receiver. He does need to work a little bit on his play strength. But overall, I think I think he has an opportunity to be a pretty solid wide receiver. I think also as well is that the system in Florida didn't give him the best opportunity to shine. He was also banged up a little bit, which could be a concern moving to the next level. But overall, this is a guy I kind of like for a couple years now. I mean, been in college for a couple years now, but I think he's got a lot of good opportunity here in the NFL. Could be one of those guys that definitely that ends up as a better NFL player than they were as a college player. As rare as that is, I think that could be. I think that could be Pearsall.
Katron, do you have anything to add to the potential bull case for Pearsall? You had him ranked one lower than Ian.
I think he's fine. I don't think like Pearsall is pretty middling. I think Ian explained it well when he said he wasn't sure if he got um the best I don't know what word did you use?
His support in Florida.
Yeah, like just his role and opportunity there wasn't as good as it could have been. And at the NFL level, if he does get that, I think he has the opportunity to have a solid year. I think I wanted to ask Ian, where would it be a landing spot that you would be like excited for him to go? Like, is that like would you want him somewhere where he's like for sure the two, or somewhere where like he's playing with a good quarterback but might be struggling to get targets?
That's a good question. I think it's. I mean, as with any rookie, you'd obviously want him to end up in a situation where he's going to get opportunity, but at the same time, especially for an older guy, there might not be as much runway for him, over the course of his first few years, where if he's not on the field kind of immediately, he may never end up getting there. So I think I'd rather see him end up in a place or an opportunity where at least has maybe a window to get in. I'm trying to think. There's a lot of quarterback movement that we got going on right now in the NFL, and even a lot of wide receiver movements. It feel a little bit hard to peg, but definitely a veteran quarterback like Cousins comes to mind for sure.
What about like A Rod with the Jets? Say no one goes to the Jets and he's just playing as the two behind GW.
Yeah, like that would be a good opportunity, I think, especially if he can develop a relationship where Aaron trusts him. I mean, that's the kind of that's a perfect example of a quarterback who wants to find wide receivers that he can trust and knows won't drop the ball if he gets them to him exactly where it's supposed to be. So
Right.
yeah, that could be a great opportunity. That's a good example.
And his contested catches are quite nice. That's like the one thing that I think he can do well that I've seen on film is like actually winning one-on-one in man. But I don't think his route running is that good. He doesn't create that much space. And obviously, like, that's fine if he has a good contested catch win rate. But he needs to also be winning on the route level at the next level. So I don't think that highly of Ricky Pearsall. Took him a while to break out in college. And yeah, just not the biggest fan. So moving on, we have Jalen McMillan, the next up of the Washington receivers that we are disrespecting here. And and he is 6'1", 192, 22 years old, junior. Our collective grade for him is 17. And Katron, why don't you start it off and tell me why you don't fuck with Jalen McMillan?
Well, it's mostly the same argument as Polk. Just not liking the receivers on that team for the most part, not thinking they're very good, don't think they're going to convert. And his build's just worse than Polk's. So it's just like, might as well bet on Polk. He's like the better prospect in that way. Also, Polk's 21, right? So
Yeah.
he's also younger.
Right.
And yeah, I just he fell down my rankings because I don't same process as Polk and Adunze, but the worst prospect of the three physically.
Makes sense. Carter, why don't you give us the bull case, because you have McMillan graded relatively highly to us.
Yeah, I think he was gonna have a really big year this year, for his injury. His dominator rating is like not that bad, especially with someone who I think is really good in the draft class. So Adunze at 25.5% and a 21% target share. I think that's pretty good, especially with how dominant Adunze was throughout the year. I mean, you can look at his stats. Like last year, he had 79 receptions, 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns, and he was already at 5 TDs before his. Already halfway there with pretty much every stat, or a little above halfway, with the injury included. So I think if we were to estimate how it could have been, he probably had an even better year. He is a little bit older, and he's like a late breakout in a sense. He didn't break out to his junior year, so those things do worry me a bit. But I just kind of like him a lot more than a lot of these other lower guys on this list for the most part. I just, again, like I don't disagree with you. I struggle with the whole Penix system receiver thing. I think there is a world where they all could be good too at the same time. But we're just gonna have to like wait and see, I guess, on that.
Ian, do you have anything to add onto the whole McMillan?
His drop rate's a little high. It's a little unfortunate. I do think that the injury this last year definitely sapped him, and I think you saw it at times. So him maintaining his health is going to obviously be a big thing. See if he can bounce back from that. I am curious to see how he tests, but I do like overall. I think he has a decent. I think he does have a decent profile, and he does have some upside, but I think there's just a lot of question marks, which is, obviously why um, he's not higher in these rankings. So, yeah.
All right, checks out. Moving on, we have ranked number 17, Devontae Walker, 6'3", out of North Carolina. This is where things start to get controversial a bit in our rankings, where we have to have a bit of a disagreement. So, Carter, why don't you lead us off? You have Devontae Walker ranked pretty highly.
Yeah, I mean, he just looks like he does a lot of things well to me. He's pretty athletic. Runs like a 4.46, I think, last recorded. Obviously, we'll see what that comes in at the combine. And his name is Tez Walker, dude. Like, how got me in on this guy, man? Whenever he played with Drake May, so his dominator rating in college overall is at 22%. Whenever he played with Drake May, it increased to a 33%. So I think that just shows, like, with good quarterback play, he can play better. Now, obviously, is that an indictment of, like, what we're talking about with the Washington receivers? Like, is this the product of Drake May? And obviously, a lot of us here are pretty high on Drake May, so that might be the case with him. But yeah, I don't know. I like him like good bits.
Yeah, I mean, I think to add on to what Carter's saying, I mean, he's a vertical deep threat that I think in this class, and one of the reasons why I had him a little bit higher than some of the other guys is just because his contested catch rate is one of the best is one of the best in the class. And you see that with some of the ability to track the ball in the air, and he can accelerate and decelerate pretty well mid route, which is interesting. I think that's a really underutilized skill sometimes in the NFL, and maybe even compared to some of his peers in this class. Um, and I think kind of compared to some of these other deep threats, like he is very good um, in accelerating in that portion of the game, or being the best at that portion of the game. Obviously, he could be a lot higher if he had a little bit more skill in that tree, and being able to do a little bit better. He needs to work on his consistency to really, at the next level, to really thrive. But he's a top tier big threat, I think, in this class, or over the top threat. So
All right. I hate him. I really don't like Devontae Walker. I have him ranked as my second worst wide receiver that we graded, and I'll speak on why. When watching his film, I've never seen something like it. Every time this motherfucker catches the ball, there's a pause. And if you go back and watch his film, I swear to God, go back and watch every time that he is going to catch the ball in his hands. And then right after, there's a pause. He always pauses. And it's not an intentional pause where he's trying to juke you out. It's like he just stops in time for whatever reason and just stands there. And at the NFL level, he's going to get bitched up. And I don't think that shit's going to fucking fly. In 2023 with Drake May, a quarterback that we have highly touted going number 2 overall, he dropped 700 fucking yards. Okay? That's horseshit. That is terrible. Okay? So Devontae Walker, I think, is just honestly bad.
Yeah, I think I have Devontae's pretty low. My biggest thing is he never broke 1,000 yards. That's like a big red flag, I think, especially when you're playing with the number 2 overall quarterback. I think that's like what are you doing? What's going on that stopped you from breaking that if you're actually supposed to be a good prospect? I will say, like Ian said though, he's big. He you kind of can't fuck with him in a contested catch. But he also doesn't have any real route tree either, so that's not really great either. So honestly, probably should have had him a bit lower too. He kind of sucks, but he's pretty big. He's kind of a monster if you get the ball near him and someone else.
He's definitely good in contested catches. You can't argue that. But I'm just saying, like, there is not much after that. Like, that's why there's 7 touchdowns. Like, I mean, 7 touchdowns is okay, but it's not that much with Drake May. Like, dude, he should have more than that. If he just was able to catch the ball in stride, he's not able to catch the ball in stride. He catches the ball, pauses. There is no stride. I have never
be a tight end on the Chargers.
A tight end on the Chargers. A 6'3", 200 tight end on the Chargers.
Well, it would be bigger,
but I swear to God, it's the like weirdest phenomenon I've ever seen. It's like the fucking yips for wide receivers. I've never seen someone not be able to catch a ball in stride as a wide receiver. It is crazy. So go look at it. I'm not bullshitting. Go and look. Go and watch. He doesn't catch in stride. He's able to moss people, winning contested catches, but that's his like one trick pony type shit. So if he doesn't able to develop a route tree, I think he's gonna be able to not be that good at the NFL level. But I've spent a good amount of time talking about Devontae Walker. So let's move on here. Keep the ball rolling. Now moving on to number 16, we have Xavier Legette. 6'3", 227, University of South Carolina, 23 years old. He's a senior. Our collective grade on him is a 15. And Katron, why don't you start off? Why do you have Xavier Legette graded so low?
Okay. Well, first of all, he didn't break out to a senior year. He was there the whole time and didn't do anything. Literally did nothing until the last year. Like wasn't not even like 400 yards like playing as like the 3. Like literally did nothing. And that's a huge red flag. He's old. Like he's 23. Like he's the same age as like guys we drafted in 2021 now who've been in the NFL for a couple of years. Like he doesn't have an advantage to those guys. That's not good. And I think he also struggles with the route tree, and so I just don't see much upside with Xavier Legette.
Ian, why don't you talk good on Xavier Legette for a second?
The big thing with him is going to be his physical profile, right? Especially straight line speed, and so how can teams utilize him in different ways? So I think one of the things is that especially if you get it as a guy who I think could thrive in a lot of these motions. So like they have these cheat motions like in Miami now, right, where you get guys matched up and they can use their athleticism. I think that that's an opportunity for him to utilize that he's got really great straight line athleticism. So using him on sweeps, end arounds, or running verticals and corners, I think he's going to have an opportunity for success in the NFL in that sense. So he does show that he has a little bit more um, than just being a deep threat. So I like that. He's got sure hands. He only recorded I think 2 drops this year, which is nice. That's like a big thing for me. It's like if you're gonna be kind of he was a little bit more of a deep threat. So if you're gonna be a little bit more of that deep threat, I'd rather you catch the ball than not catch the ball. That being said, he is I don't want to say undersized because he is a taller guy, but it's funny because his contested catch rate, even though he's a little bit smaller than Walker, who we just talked about, is actually significantly worse than Walker. But I think Leggett has an opportunity, depending on where he ends up, to being a pretty fun uh, player who can utilize his athleticism across the board.
And Carter, why don't you give us the full bull case on Xavier Legette?
Yeah, I mean, I know that he was a late breakout for sure, and that is concerning. He is super old. I get that, but I think just like with his size and speed, like combined together, he's just gonna be. He has the potential to be like a higher ceiling kind of guy in the NFL if he goes to the right situation and continues to grow. Um, he doesn't use his body to catch the ball. I like that a lot. He's super secure with his hands, and he catches pretty decent in traffic. And he hung like a 35% dominator rating in South Carolina, which is really impressive for me. Um, he kind of, I don't want to make this comparison, but he's kind of like one of those raw athletes, kind of like a DK who has an opportunity to develop. And so, not saying that he will ever become DK or get there, but that is like in his like like variation like of outcomes, like possibility of outcomes. And if we do get that, it's like a super high ceiling guy that we kind of want to get. Now, obviously, people like DK are facing out in the NFL, so hopefully he becomes more like a big slot kind of guy. Um, but yeah, it's just more of a ceiling play for me. I think like he has the opportunity to become like something massive in the NFL if he's used correctly and continues to grow.
All right. It's all good shit on Xavier Legette. So moving on to number 15, ranked number 15, we have Luke McCaffrey. And this has to be, I think this is our most controversial player.
Ian's reaction to that is absurd.
I think this is our most controversial player, not even close. As you can see in our personal rankings, we are a bit on two sides of the coin here on Luke McCaffrey. So Luke McCaffrey is 6'2", 195 out of Rice. He's 22 years old. He's a junior, and our collective grade on him is being weighed down 13.5. Ian had him graded as his literal worst receiver. So why don't we start there?
I have no idea what anybody sees in this guy.
I start.
No.
Please tell me, what am I supposed to see? Because I'm watching a dude beat up on UConn football, which I think
Okay,
is
okay.
10 years, won 5 football games. Like, I don't give a shit. This guy has done nothing against anybody worth a crap. And even when he does, he doesn't even look that good doing it. You want to talk about running and getting 1,000 yards? Get 1,000 yards in a
That's what I'm getting to. I was getting to
What are you
that.
talking about?
Okay.
I
understand.
This
contradicts.
I've ever fucking seen.
This contradicts not getting 1,000 yards, but dude, like his quarterback literally horrendous. Literal like.
Yes, because he plays in a dog conference, but there are no good players.
Yeah. He's okay. Listen, dude, he's really good at it. You should watch some film. He is awesome.
I did, and I was just like, it felt like I was watching a high school football game. Actually, it felt like I was watching a Purdue football.
Yeah, I know. He's gonna make the NFL players look like that. Too.
Yeah, he's gonna make them look silly.
He's gonna make the NFL quarterbacks look the same way.
I mean, unless he, the only way I could even be brought to even reconsidering him is that if for some reason he comes to the combine and he like blows it out of the water. Like
Do you see his last name? It's a lock.
But his speed's not that great, right? I feel like he had trouble keeping or like getting away from defenders, and that's why his contested catches were so high. And he is good at that. But if he's gonna play like a slot role or like a Z role, we really need him to like break away. Like, and his route running seems kind of meh to me also. And he's played like what 3 different fucking positions in college. Like,
Dude,
this
I
dude is
think-
obviously just like they're just trying to find a role because he's Christian McCaffrey's brother.
Yeah,
He's probably
he's just-
donating help money to the
Well, look, he has
Pretty
good
joke
rushing
about
stats.
Tiger
His rushing
Jones
stats are
Tiger
great.
did just so he could get off on Luke McCaffrey. The whole reason why he had these rankings for all of us is so that way he knew as soon as it popped up on the screen, I would have an aneurysm.
Well,
Like
Okay,
I
look, his rushing stats are great. His receiving's not as good, dude. He's a dual threat. He could so be used as a dual threat in the NFL. Look at his rushing.
A
stats.
dual threat. A Debo Samuel, if you would.
Yeah.
The white Debo. A white
he's probably-
Debo.
Actually, he'll probably just replace Debo
So,
on the
so
Niners.
all right. I have
And
okay. I have Luke McCaffrey graded as my 6th best receiver in the class. No bullshit. All right. And let me sell you. All right. Let me sell you real quick. Let me try and shed some light on the bull case for Luke McCaffrey, because Luke McCaffrey actually is a dog. Like, I know his receiving stats are mediocre. All right. But there are things that we can take away that we really like. He almost hit 1,000 yards. It's kind of nice. The 13 touchdowns. The 13 touchdowns we do. The 13 touchdowns we do love. That is dog. All right. But away from the stats, just watching the film, Luka McCaffrey is very good in open space with his burst. Unironically, his raw speed that he's going to test at the combine is not going to be impressive. It's probably going to drag him down even further, to be honest. But I think in the other areas, like in literally every other area, I think he'll grade well, because his agility and his ability to create extra yards for him when the ball is in his hands is actually quite nice. And I know he's playing against awful players, all right? And I know his ability to produce against awful players does not mean anything. So his stats really don't mean much. But like Katron was saying about dual threat, dude, he can do it. Like, he can fucking do it. Luke McCaffrey is very, very good with the ball in his hands. I know you both are probably just like, dude, whatever. But on film, Luke McCaffrey actually is really fucking good. Like, no bullshit. He's going to make explosive plays in the NFL year one. I will tout that. Luke McCaffrey is a semi-flag plant for me for sure. No cap. Luke McCaffrey is... I don't care where he gets drafted. If he's at least a wide receiver 3, I think by the end of the year, I could see him having like garnering like an 18% plus target share. No bullshit. So I know y'all don't believe in that at all, but me and Katron, we're gonna keep sipping on the Luke McCaffrey juice because it tastes pretty fucking good. And yeah, that's I think we're gonna end that one. So anyone else have anything to add? No.
I have a feeling I know who the next person is.
You may or may not. We'll see. So at rank number 14, we have Jermaine Burton.
Oh.
So Jermaine Burton is a
What the fuck, Carter?
He's a 6 foot 194 receiver out of Alabama. He's 22 years old. He is a senior, and our collective grade on him is 13. So Carter, why don't you start us off, because you have him graded as the 3rd worst receiver.
Yeah, I mean, he's got like speed. He can separate well, and he's got good hands. But his play strength is like, man, he gets a lot of penalties for a wide receiver. It's kind of insane. His production is kind of leaves a lot to be desired for. I mean, being at Alabama for 4 years, you know you have top tier quarterback talent and never breaking 1,000 yards. It's kind of concerning. He's obviously never been like the best receiver on his team. I just feel like there's not a lot of upside to him here. and I just don't know if he's going to be like a consistent player. Like this could be for me. This is just easily a player that can bust out of the league pretty quickly. Uh, I think like his range of outcomes is like bust to like okay starter. And as an okay starter, I don't think he ever breaks like more than a wide receiver 3 in fantasy. And it's not someone I'm like looking to pick up with in dynasty, especially with where he's probably going to be going in drafts.
All right. Katron, why don't you get us on the Jermaine Burton bull case?
I like Burton was playing as not like Carter said, he's not playing as the one, which is why I think it's okay that he lacked the yardage. He really didn't get very he only had about 40 receptions in his last 2 years. You know, he's not getting a ton of targets every game, and he's playing for Alabama, which is also partly why I have him so high. You know, he looked good in a strong offense playing against really good defenses. You know, and he also got to practice against Alabama's defense, which I think is pretty cool. I think getting to, play that much against, one of the best defenses in college really makes you a better player. And so I think he has a lot of upside in that form. And I think as a prospect, I guess he's not like the biggest player we have and not, the most physically talented, but I think he makes good decisions and can be pretty talented with the ball in his hands. So I think, between being able to already playing with top defenses, he looks to transfer well to the NFL.
Ian, do you have anything to add on to the Jermaine Burton bull case?
I think the thing with him is that if he can, his thing is being a strong but reliable wide receiver. He's not gonna blow you away at any one thing. He's just very solid at a lot of things. I will say with that is that he is very strong. I didn't say that, but he is very strong in catching the ball. Again, another solid wide receiver that doesn't do that or doesn't drop the ball. And I think he's gonna, if he can basically be the same player he was in college, that in the NFL, he's gonna have a solid role as a 2-3 wide receiver type. And he's not. I don't think he's. Certainly don't think. We're not talking about guys who are going to be alpha wide receivers here, the number ones, the best of the best. But could he have a solid career, solid year? Getting into that in between 800 to 1,000 yard type seasons. I think that's certainly kind of in his wheelhouse with his skill set. So for a guy we're talking about, what 13th in his class, I think that's a pretty solid outcome for where we're looking at with this type of player.
Yep, my thoughts just pretty much echo what you and Katron are saying about Jermaine Burton. Don't really have anything to add. So moving on, we have our ranked number 13 player. We have Brendan Rice. He is 6'3", 210, out of USC. He is 21-year-old senior. Our collective grade for him is a 12.75, and I'll start off this one because I have him graded pretty highly above consensus, I can see. So let me start with the bull case. Brendan Rice is, let's start with the obvious. We have to mention it. Come on. It's Jerry Rice's fucking kid. Come on. How is Jerry Rice's kid that plays the same position as him, that has the build that we know succeeds at the NFL level, not just gonna auto win? What? Come on. It's just, that seems pretty ABC to me. I don't know. So
I don't know, man. You seen Scottie Pippen's kid?
Have I seen Scottie Pippen's kid? Okay, but Scottie Pippen wasn't even the best person on his own fucking story. So I don't really give a shit about Scottie Pippen. Jerry Rice, people know about Jerry Rice.
And we'll see Bronny in the league.
Yeah, we'll see Bronny in the league. Bronny will be disgusting. That's for a whole different video though. So back on Brendan Rice, I think that my personal opinion on Caleb Williams isn't that high. It's definitely lower than consensus. And I think that Brendan Rice was honestly a little potentially held back by Caleb Williams. And I know that may be, whoa, what the fuck? But Brendan Rice is actually disgusting. Like there's nothing that he doesn't do well on the NFL field. It would blow my mind to see him not go in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft because of his age, his size, what he does on the field. He's great at contested catches. His route tree is expansive. Like I don't know what Brendan Rice isn't going to be able to do for your team. He should be the 2 wherever he goes. I'd say in like 70% of landing spots. I think very highly of Brendan Rice, and I think he'll be a great NFL player. He'll translate really well. So yeah, Ian, why don't you hit me with the bear case?
I don't really see him the same way. I think of him as a one trick pony actually, which is interesting to me because the part of the reason why I have some of these players ranked where that I have him is that to me he's almost a little bit of a worse version of Walker. In turn, like I mean, his big stuff is getting downfield, right, and trying to get over the top of defenses, and he kind of lacks that that separation that we want to see out of those deep threats. Its contested catch rate is actually relatively is pretty poor. He does have a good build. He's got a good size. His tools are definitely there. But I think for him, it's maybe more of a mental thing of putting all those things together and really trying to succeed. So I think wherever he ends up going is going to be a project. I don't see him getting on the field immediately, or at least without some work. Um, so I kind of struggle a little bit relative to some of his peers who have similar skill sets um, that have produced either similarly or done it better against other higher end competition, let's say. Um, so he has shown at times the ability to have some really good games. Like he had a really good game against Oregon, that highly graded game. So that's obviously a positive sign. But at other times he's also shrunk a little bit, so or away from the competition. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles the next level. But I'm a little bit lower on him, for other guys in this type of skill set and profile.
Carter, do you have anything to add to the bear case on Brendan Rice?
Yeah, I think like he just never showed a true like breakout ever. I think his highest dominator rating was in the final season for like 25%. He's just he feels like a Josh Palmer type. I guess is like a good comparison where it's like I think he'll be as good as whatever situation quarterback he'll go to is. So if he's like on a pretty good team and he has a good situation where he can immediately start as like the number 2 or number 3 guy, he could produce pretty early, which will be good. They'll give him some experience, but I just don't see him ever like overtaking anyone to get to that spot and kind of always being like this third, fourth string guy and struggling to break out in the NFL personally.
Katron, do you have any thoughts to add on Brendan Rice?
Yeah, the way they talk about him, I'm kind of lower on him now. He kind of sounds like Tyler Boyd, to be
Yeah,
honest.
that's another good like comparisons. Like
Yeah.
it's like solid if he's like by himself with one other receiver, but if there's like 2 other receivers on his team, like if he goes somewhere like the Eagles, for example, like he's never producing there. You know what I mean? Or if he goes to like he wouldn't give us the same results JSN did on the Seahawks if it was like Brendan Rice in his place. Obviously, Jason was a much better prospect, but just like as a good example of like 2 good wide receivers already in the system, I just don't think he ever like overtakes any of them. Where like Jason has the opportunity to overtake like Kyle Lowry this year.
Joe's just we're so ready to tell us all that we're dumb as shit.
I mean, I just completely disagree with y'all. Like, it's just as simple as that. Like, I think Brendan Rice is just incredibly good at football. Like, and will be able to win in multiple ways at the next level. So, it's just a we'll see. Like, I mean, landing spot obviously does affect a lot of it, but we'll see. Yeah. So moving on, we have our ranked number 12 receiver. We have Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. Another pretty controversial one, I would say, in terms of relative consensus. He is 6'4", 196 out of Texas. He's a 21-year-old junior, so it's the type of profile that we all love seeing. And our collective grade on him is 12.25. So, Katron, why don't you start us off on why you don't really fuck with Adonai Mitchell?
Well, I haven't seen much tape on Adane, so my opinion is definitely just not as full. But um, I don't know. He didn't break 1,000 yards, which isn't awesome. Obviously that doesn't mean everything. There's plenty of good prospects. His build's pretty cool. And the early commit is great. I think this is the first early commit we've gotten to so far, and that's a pretty good sign. So honestly, he probably should have been a little higher on my list. Um, but he did nothing before the last year, which is a little worrisome. Um, but I mean, he's a great prospect, and he's touted pretty highly. So with like the physical build in that sense, he could develop really well. But I think it's gonna be a project wherever he goes.
Yeah, and I'll say that I like his route tree, but and his speed is okay. It's definitely like okay for his size, maybe even like above average for his size. But I don't know. He just doesn't do anything that's like that flashy to me. I don't think he'll ever like be like a true alpha on a team, which is like my worry about him. But he obviously the early declare is something to be super happy about, and then he truly broke out like last year in 2023 relative to his other seasons. So and the quarterback play in Texas was shoddy at best. So
Who's their quarterback?
It fluctuated between a couple players. Well,
That's not good.
Ewers played most of the season, but yeah.
so Ian, why don't you hit us with the bull case for Donnie Mitchell? You had him graded pretty highly, number 7 overall.
Yeah, I mean, just having watched a lot of Texas football throughout the year, and like I mean, they obviously had a really good season. Um, was that he jumped out to me as the guy that whenever they needed something to happen in the pass game, they went to him, which I think speaks a lot, especially for a team that only lost 2 games the whole season. So what and the ways he would win would be I think he can win in multiple different ways, and I think he did it against really good competition, which is all positive things from the tape side, as well as the fact that he's got really nice movement skills. He's a fluid mover in and out. Um, he's got I think really solid body control for sideline catches and being able to locate and track and make catches that are away from his body. He's got excellent hands for that, which is like a big positive for me when I want a wide receiver like that. Um, could he end up being similar to like a little bit of like an Olave type? I mean, he's obviously a little bit taller than that, but where he doesn't kill you with the speed, but just the fluid movements and the good hands and a nice catch radius with good body control. I think it doesn't like blow you away, but you're just like, damn, like every time the ball gets near him, he just finds a way to catch it. I've just been really impressed with him throughout this whole season. And I definitely think his landing spot is going to be important for his first few years, and where he ends up. But I think he's going to be, kind of in that early second, maybe mid second um, type, which could be a really, an opportunity for him to land in some places that need some immediate wide receiver help, and I think he'd be able to provide it.
I got pretty sold there, to be honest. I had him, I had him rated pretty low. that was pretty good. Carter, do you have anything to add to the bull case on Adane?
Yeah,
Yeah, you kind of made it sound awesome. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I went back and forth with him in the process between him and Worthy. I think after listening to Ian, I might have it because I have Worthy like a spot above, as we'll see later on. I just think he was like really consistent. Like he's got incredibly high IQ when running routes. His initial quick release is very quick. Like y'all are saying, he's like a very fluid mover and things like that. I think he is someone that could produce right away on a good offense, but even if he gets somewhere where he has to like wait a year, he could definitely grow into a really really solid role. And I think he'll be like an adequate starter in the NFL. And I will say too with his stats, I think that Ewers there's a potential that like where these stats are pretty inflated because Ewers was just throwing so when he probably shouldn't be in some situations. and that Adonai should have definitely got more targets in general, and that's just like a mistake on yours. Who's probably gonna be like, what do y'all think, like a day 3 quarterback for sure once he goes to the NFL if he even gets drafted. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I think in the right situation with a good quarterback and a good system, he can produce right away, and then even if he's in a place where he's got to wait a year, I think he will be someone that can grow into a pretty solid like wide receiver role.
All right. So moving on.
Time to move them up, boys.
Time to move him up. Yeah, time to move him up. That's the conclusion.
McCaffrey down.
No, not Luke McCaffrey down. That's not what's happening here.
Move Brandon Rice down.
I don't know about that either, but we can talk about some other players. So moving on, we have rank number 11. We got Jamari Thrash, 6'1", 185 out of Louisville. This is a player that we all consensus think pretty highly about. It's 23-year-old junior, collective grade of 12, except for Ian. Yep. Yeah, Ian doesn't fuck with him. Kind of full weird on him. And so we'll start with Ian. Ian, why don't you hate him? Or why do you hate him?
I mean, does he? I guess sell me on. I'll tell you this. I just told you on. I just told you on Mitchell. Give me the thrash. Like, why should I?
Katron can give you the thrash.
Dude, this is like my guy. I'm a big fan. Okay, so I don't even know who the quarterback at Louisville is. Like,
Should be Plummer.
exactly. And he broke 1,000 yards. That's pretty awesome, first of all. Second of all, have you seen this guy's jukes? He is awesome. You get the ball in his hands, he's nasty. He is so nasty with the ball in his hands. And I think he's going to translate really well to the NFL because of that.
I was right. It was Jack Plummer, former Purdue quarterback.
Oh, Purdue.
Oh, even better. He got removed from Purdue.
Couldn't win in Purdue. Had to transfer out of Purdue.
Well, see, the thing is, here's what happened was that the quarterback or the coach at Purdue left and went to Louisville.
Okay, that makes it better. That makes it
That
better.
does make it better.
Carter, what are your thoughts on Jamari?
Yeah, I think he's just like okay. Like Katron said, he's pretty good with the ball in his hands, so I'm excited to see if maybe we can get some like big play potential from him. That would be really cool if he played like big slot role or something. He's a pretty like smooth, fluid mover, and he's got good instincts, and he tracks the ball very, very well. His downfield speed's not very good though, so I'm worried about like his seam routes and things like that. If he were to play like in the slot, for example, in the NFL, and his ability to make catches is not great, so I definitely don't see him like exceeding if he played like a Z or X role whatsoever. I think this is like really, I'm kind of in between with him. I know I have him like ranked pretty high. I just kind of like stuff I've seen. He is a little older of a prospect. I think like his range of outcomes is like scheme specific kind of player to like adequate starter, like a decent starter. So yeah, just not a lot of thoughts. I think Katron said a lot of good stuff about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say no. The thing with him is that, and this is where I guess I kind of struggle, is that he certainly is a little bit more of an underneath guy, right? A little bit more slot-ish. Had a few too many drops for my taste. Again, I mean, there's kind of a theme that I have through this is that I like that consistency of the wide receivers a little bit.
It was
more.
the Plummer balls, man. It wasn't even his fault.
He catches the ball with his body a lot. That is one knock I have on him for sure.
Yeah. But he does have good movement skills, which is why I had him a little bit higher than some of those, like than the low end of than some of these other guys. But I mean, I think the bear thesis for him, if you or the bull, I guess, if you really want to sell him, is that you got to try to imagine him more of as like a tank type player. But I don't see the same things that we saw in Tank that I see with Thrash here. And that's kind of why I struggle with him a little bit, because I do the size bothers me a little bit. I think he's only listed like 185 pounds. So it's not that players can't overcome that. It's just, can he overcome that with his skill set? And I don't necessarily see it. as much. Um, but I do agree he's got excellent movement skills. I just wonder how much it translates, especially with drops. Our quarterback's going to trust him. Our wide receiver coach is going to trust him to have him out on the field. I don't know. We'll see. I think it'd be interesting to see if the team is willing to invest into him highly. But I I just struggle a little bit to see it, I guess, for me. But maybe I'm just biased or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm
I
yeah.
understand the concerns with Jamari Thrash. All the drops are especially valid. That's definitely why I don't have him ranked as highly as Katron does. But that's really like that's the only main knock for me because I think he's a great route runner. I think he can play either the X or just like in the slot. I think that Jamari is very fluid for his size. 6'1", 185. He moves very fast and is very agile for that size. So even though that he doesn't win in a contested catch style, I still think that he can translate well his game at least to the NFL. So that's all I have to add to Jamari. And moving on to our next one, this is fucking gas. This one's good. We got rank number 10. We got Malachi Corley, and there's some controversy here as we can see, and that is, and I had a chat with said person, and they are dead ass. So this is Malachi Corley, who is 5'11", 210 pounds, out of Western Kentucky. He is 21 years old. He's a junior, and our collective grade for him is 11.75. And Carter, why do you start off, man?
Look, I'm not gonna bring you the stats. I'm not gonna bring you anything. This guy
He's just gonna bring you vibes.
He's mid and he's just gonna bust. This dude is telling everyone at the Senior Bowl he's gonna be the fucking next Debo. This dude does nothing like Debo whatsoever.
Wait, was he saying that?
Yes, he was saying that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm out. He's last.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't call yourself the next Debo. Yeah, you cannot say that.
First of all, if you were a real god like Javon Baker, who was saying, "Nah, I'm better than MHA Neighbors," which is delusional, but I like that. Compare yourself to another man is crazy. And you don't need to be doing the shit he be doing. You're not Debo. You're not him. And he's gonna come to the NFL expecting all these things. This dude's just gonna bust. I'm telling you. I don't. I'm not drafting any of this guy whatsoever in anything.
And so let's go to the other.
Don't tell him what they're wrong.
I want you because I know you think very highly about Corley too, Ian. So I want you to hit him with it.
Yeah, I've been on Corley for a little bit now. So, the dude just has incredibly fluid movement skills at a frame and a body size that is similar to Debo. The concerns and why I probably don't have him quite as high as Joe is just the level of competition. Is he going to be able to do that at the NFL level? That's the question. I think the Senior Bowl showed that he is capable of getting up to that higher level of competition and still repeating some of the similar stuff that he was doing, against some of these other guys. But the yak, the movement, his body size, it's pretty special in my opinion. So I love this. I think teams are going to. I think his ability to be different in his roles and play in the slot. He could probably play outside, play maybe more in line with given his build, but then also maybe even play out of the backfield, play in the screen game. I think he's got a lot of opportunities, especially in today's NFL where teams are really trying to move guys around. What do you fools game on?
Carter, just the look that Carter gave you when you said he could play in the backfield. And
I'm not saying he's playing as a running back, but I'm saying he's playing like out of the backfield.
Yeah. So
Carter was not fucking with that.
And Carter is really not gonna fuck with this because Malachi.
That's
Malachi Corley, dude. I understand the distaste with him saying stupid shit because he's an idiot. Honestly, like, dude is an idiot. Just straight
Hey,
up.
I don't want my wide receivers to be smart.
They don't need to be
My wide
smart.
receivers
They don't need to
go.
be smart. No, they need to be good at football,
So
and that's
you
all I
want
care
Chase
about.
Claypool?
No, I don't want Chase Claypool. We don't want that. No. Let's not get it twisted. Let's not get it twisted.
Okay.
We like Malachi Corley because just like Ian was saying, gonna echo him with this the size and speed here. What he does for his size and speed, it's incredible. Like 5'11", 210, and how fast he moves, how agile he is with the ball in his hands. It doesn't make sense. It literally doesn't make sense. He is an incredible prospect just from like a body type wise, and I think that he showed it in college. He's playing in Western Kentucky, and obviously not they aren't great, but he is dominating them. It is not close. He is by far the best receiver on the field. He's the best player on the field every single time he steps on the field. I think Malachi Corley is going to translate incredibly well to the NFL. I don't care where he goes. I don't care. I think Malachi Corley is one of those players you can just stamp. He will eventually produce at the NFL level. So I will be picking him a bunch in Dynasty. I don't care how dumb he is, dude. Like, as long as he's just like not getting in trouble with the law, he can say all the stupid shit he wants. Okay, so that's like my main concern with where I draw the line with that. So yeah,
I do think he scored the only touchdown that Western Kentucky had when they played Alabama earlier this year. I have to double check on that.
I'm pretty sure he
Just
did.
hope he doesn't buy a car.
No, I remember watching film and Malachi played very well against Alabama. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. I'm just trying to remember if he scored their only touchdown or not. I'm trying to remember how much they scored. Sorry.
No, you're straight. So yeah.
No, it wasn't Bama. It was Ohio State. That's what it was, and he did score their only touchdown. I don't know. That's pretty cool. 8 for 88 for one against one of the best teams in the country. I think
At playing with Western Kentucky, like that is it's really impressive. Like he's able to produce against NFL ready players. So we can just already look at that and just grade it 1-to-1 as like a baseline NFL. Like, will he be able to do well against said players? So we're big Malachi Corley fans here with me and Ian and Katron. Do you have anything to add to the Corley bull case?
No, I think he's really good. I just found out about some new information though that I'm not necessarily too hyped about, but I think he's a pretty amazing prospect for sure.
All right, so moving on, rank number 9.
Can I get a quick break? I need to check my dog.
You're fine.
Yeah. I do have to dip out at like 5:20 to take my grading out to a doctor's appointment, so.
We'll be done before then.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was hoping. I figured we probably would take another like hour or so to finish, so.
Dude,
Oh, yeah.
Don't I have Xavier Worthy like retardedly low?
We'll find out. I'm not sure.
He's coming up, right?
He's the next one. He is, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sorry about that. Let's do it.
You're fine. All right. All right, so moving on, we have rank number 9, Xavier Worthy, 6'1", 172, out of Texas. He's 20 years old. He's a junior. So we love seeing those early declares. Our collective grade from him is an 11.5. We all think relatively high about him, but Carter is especially high on him. So why don't we start with you, Carter?
Yeah, he broke out super young. I think he was the youngest breakout in his class at 18 years old, which is awesome, obviously, for as we've seen with prospects in the NFL, like conversion rates and things like that. He had a dominant rating of like 30%. So I think that's the second highest dominant rating in the class as well, which is kind of incredible. he's just like a really solid guy that does a lot of stuff well. I will say, like, I do agree that his numbers might be inflated because, again, viewers just loved him way too much and threw to him in situations where he probably should have been throwing to Adonai instead. So that's something to just kind of consider taking in. I'm going to be going back and forth with him probably throughout the whole process of who I like more. But I can definitely see Worthy as someone that kind of just comes out and produces right away for a team that he gets drafted on. And I think there's a possibility he goes pretty high, but like not super high in the draft class, but like maybe like late first, early second, which is like a really good spot. And I think he'll be like a pretty decent starter at NFL level.
All right, and Ian, would you have anything to add to the bull case on Xavier Worthy?
I mean, I think Worthy is again. I think Carter mentioned it, which is he broke out really young in his freshman year, true freshman year at Texas. He came on. He came on hot. I remember. I think I remember it was like his second game. He had some huge plays. The only thing with him, and he's continued to excel in the role, being a deep threat and all that. But given his size, I think he struggles a little bit over the middle of the field, um, which may not be as big of a deal in the NFL with the way they protect guys. But he definitely plays over the top. But he's more slight build, so he really has to beat guys clean to get a lot of to to clean and catch the ball. His contested catch rate is obviously not great. Just he's slight of frame. He doesn't have the widest catch radius. Um, but again, his top end speed is elite. He might be the fastest wide, probably gonna end up being the fastest wide receiver in this class or close to it. He's got good movement skills, so we like all of that. I think there's going to be some questions about how he gets pressed in man coverage. But I think we're starting to see in the NFL nowadays, coordinators are figuring out how to get speedy guys open. I mean, I think all of us probably thought Tutu Atwell should have been thrown in the grave or in the garbage, 2 years ago, and he actually had a pretty decent year when he was getting run. Could he end up being like a souped up version of the Tutu Atwell? I think that's probably somewhere where he lines up in that type of role. So um, I think that there's opportunity there if he can expand a little bit more. Um, so, but yeah, but he's elite at what he does, in my opinion.
I will say there is like nothing bad to say about Xavier Worthy besides his size. I feel like his size is the only thing that's concerning. He does not weigh that much. It's like very very concerning if he like could get bitched up in press or just in contested catch situations where he's not able to break away. But I mean, he can just win with speed, so that's like the alternative here. That's like the catch 22. So, it's just we'll see. Like we've seen players that don't have the size but have the speed or other tools win at the NFL level all the time. So it never comes down to really size thing. It's just all about the player. And he's been incredible ever since he's stepped on the football field at the collegiate level. Like they were talking about the 18-year-old breakout. Like that's we don't see that often. So honestly, like I feel like I have him ranked maybe a little lower than I should. Yeah. Katron, do you think you'd have?
I think for me, at least for fantasy wise, if he gets draft capital in the NFL draft, I would be really in on him in fantasy. Uh, if like specifically if he goes in the spot card that we're talking about, if he's going in like Chiefs range, like late first, early second, where you have a lot of teams that are contenders, or if he's linking up with Caleb or Drake May, like one of those spots, I would be super in.
Yeah, I think obviously, like I think any team's wide receivers, their number one landing spot is Kansas City. But
Well, yeah.
yeah, I think with Worthy is that he could take the Mecole Hardman role in a heartbeat, as an example, like straight out of the gate. I mean, as a rookie, that would be a really easy role for him
Right.
to fill. So, especially with creative, obviously as creative as Andy Reid is, and I mean, we've seen it. Kansas City loves to take deep shots, and if they had a guy who could really stretch the field as well as Worthy could. That'd be an elite spot. But there are other landing spots where I would struggle a little bit with him as as a as a fantasy player.
So moving on, we have at rank number 8, we have Roman Wilson out of Michigan. He's 6', 192, 22 years old. He's a senior. His collective grade is a 10.5 out of us. We all consensusly ranked him pretty middle of the pack. And I feel like we all ranked him middle of the pack because the only reason we can't rank him higher is because of how middle of the pack he was in college in terms of production. Because I'll start off, I think Roman Wilson's a fucking dog. And the big thing about him is there's a story of Roman Wilson for high school had to literally fly to school every day because his family lived in a certain part of Hawaii where he didn't have any high schools. So he had to travel through charter plane and had to fly standby. He couldn't afford tickets every day. So the dedication and work ethic is something that I just can't ignore. He wants it badly, and his collegiate production is very middle of the pack. But in 2023, we did see him have a relative breakout. 48, 7, 89 for 12 touchdowns is not bad. So, and on a Michigan team with JJ McCarthy, where it's a very field general-esque offense, I don't really care about his stats that much because of how we know how the offense is run. We all got to see it on a national level. So he's good in contested catch situations. He needs to work on his route running. That's the one knock, is his route running is not that great. But in contested catch situations, he will moss you. He's going to dog you. Roman Wilson, I think, it will be good at the NFL level. He just needs to work on his route running.
That's what you took away from Roman Wilson?
Yeah.
I liked his route running.
You liked his route running. Okay.
I think he's a pretty good mover.
All right.
Yeah, I honestly I think that's kind of the win for him. Is that, I mean, when he was on Michigan, he was winning like a good chunk in that middle of the field route, right over the middle of the field, but medium depth. But then he could win outside on those medium depth routes too. That's kind of why I liked him so much, is because I think that NFL offenses really try to exploit those portions of the field, because that medium depth, especially on the outside, is where you're killing cover two. Like in the San Francisco runs some of it with like immediate out routes that they run with like Debo and Ayuk. Not to say that Wilson is like that. I'm just saying what those routes can do. I think that's like a really premium bread and butter type thing. I mean, obviously the easiest comp for Wilson is Amon Ra, right? And I think that comparison, like the more you kind of watch him, makes a little bit of sense. It's just that, to your point, his stats aren't great in college because Michigan didn't throw the ball a ton, right? I mean, they were running the ball all over the place. When you have an offensive line like that, why you don't really need to pass it as much as they could just run it down your throat. I mean, we saw what they did in the championship game. But I still think I like Wilson a lot. I'd love to be able to move him up a little bit higher. He does have some drawbacks in terms of, that overall size and the pure athleticism. But he's a pretty fluid mover, really nice hands, attacks the football, at the catch point, which especially over the middle of the field, which is important because, if you're throwing to a guy over the middle of the field, I mean, how many NFL interceptions do we see where it's not a bad throw, it's a bad catch where it goes off a guy's hands? Like, if he doesn't prevent that, then quarterbacks are really going to trust him over the middle of the field. At least that's what I see out of him. But
yeah, I will add to that too. I think he's gonna test pretty well. He was a big winner at the Senior Bowl from all the reports I was reading. A lot of people loved him. There was comps to things like Tyler Lockett because of his vertical speed, competitiveness, and his ability to track the ball down the field. Everyone loved him. People are thinking he's a lock for a top 50 selection. So a round 2 at the worst selection. And I think he's probably one of the only wide receivers that can challenge that top speed part. People are estimating he might run the 4.3s, which if he does that, then he's for sure a lock for a second round pick at the latest.
Yeah.
And I think this is someone as we go on in the process again, Ian was saying, it's really hard to like gauge these Michigan wide receivers because of the style of football they've played for so long, or like for the last few years under Harbaugh, and so it's like this is someone. The more we see his testing after his great Senior Bowl, and like the more we get to know of him and like what NFL GMs are saying about him, that I could easily see being moved up into like that like 6 to 8 range once we're all done with our process, like very easily, depending on like how other guys pan out as well. So I think he's definitely someone who's gonna move up.
One other thing too that I was thinking about that I forgot about was that with McCarthy, McCarthy played a lot out of system, right? In terms of getting out, and Wilson can play to those strengths with his strengths, right? And we're seeing a lot of NFL quarterbacks play out of system stuff. And it's not to say that he can't play in system, but it's just that that's another dimension to some of the stuff that he's able to do, which I think is um, again, depending on where he lands, could be more or less important. But like as an example, if it was like Buffalo, he plays with Josh Allen, right? Allen gets out of the pocket a ton, and I think that's a opportunity. That would be a lovely landing spot for Wilson to be able to play with a quarterback that can do that.
All right. So moving on to our rank number 7 player, we have Troy Franklin out of Oregon. This is where we start having, players that we really like.
The Dogs.
The Dogs. Yeah, this is the dog range. This is the range where these are NFL ready prospects, most likely. And so we have Troy Franklin, 6'3", 187 out of Oregon, 21-year-old junior. Collective grade out of all of us is a 7.75. And Katron, why don't you start us off? Because you love him.
Yeah, Troy Franklin. This guy is gonna be a 1 in the NFL eventually, for sure. Like, I'm so confident no matter where he goes, he will eventually be the number 1 on his team. Unless he is playing with, I don't even know. Everyone already has a 2 who's good enough to stop him from being a 1. Like, he's that good. And he was playing with Bo Nix. Bo Nix is not that good. Like, Bo Nix is like Bo Nix could be Jared Goff in the NFL maybe if things go right. But that's like his highest upside possible. And if that's what you're playing with, and Oregon had a really good year this year, pretty much all on the back of Troy Franklin. He carried that team super hard.
Well, Joe, you're the lowest on him. Tell him why he sucks.
Yeah. Why does he suck?
I don't think Troy Franklin sucks. I just think there are some parts of his game that aren't really there yet. And I think that, and it's like, well, what can he not really do? And it's like, when you ask me that, I don't really know. Because he kind of can do it all. But I don't know. There's just something about him when I watch him. I don't like him that much, man. I don't know what it is. It might just be a bias thing, a personal bias, but I'm just relatively low on Troy Franklin. And I mean, I am just relatively high on other players that, they just bump Troy Franklin down. That deal, I feel like that's as simple as it is. Troy Franklin's a great player that'll eventually translate to the NFL level, I think. Yeah, I'm not that low on him. He's number 11, man. I mean, he's like relative to like the receivers, middle of the pack, but I mean, I just think a lot of the receivers in this class are quite good. Like, middle of the pack for me, the receivers that start becoming like on the worst side is like number like 15, 16. Those are receivers that I don't think are going to translate. Troy Franklin, I still think he's going to translate. So that's what needs to be said.
Yeah, I think with him is that, obviously his ability to stack defenders and beat them downfield is elite, right? I mean, that's his biggest strength. The thing, again, is that for his size, as funny as it is to say, he isn't the strongest player, and And so, how does he handle that at the next level will certainly be a question, especially as defenders are going to start challenging him more at the catch point. So I can't do that. But his high end speed, his length, his size is really impressive. You know, he we didn't see him in Oregon do a ton underneath or necessarily over the middle. So I think that's where can we get some translation there. I think he's a player that probably could do it, but it's just a matter of finding a team that's going to allow him to do it. But he would. So to me, I think like when as we've kind of been stacking some of these guys in terms of their ranking, I kind of have like a little sub ranking in terms of like or thinking about them in comparison to each other. And we've talked a little bit about Worthy, talked a little bit about Walker, Brandon Rice. Some of these deep threat guys. He's probably the second best deep threat. Franklin is after probably another guy we'll see further up the rankings. But I think you kind of nailed it, Joe, when you said that his skill set, his speed, his size, everything translates to the NFL at a minimum for that skill set at a minimum. Now the question is, can he develop more? And that's what we'll have to see.
Yeah, for his size, it's weird. He kind of has like a thin frame. It's kind of strange because he's like really tall and like has a decent weight. He does struggle against like press coverage, but I don't feel like that's a real knock we can say anymore in the NFL because these guys are going to be put into motion, especially these guys that are really fast. So it's like something they're not going to have to deal with. He does struggle in like catching like in traffic, so that's why I'm worried about his middle of the field stuff and his underneath stuff. His yak ability is actually really good. So he's one of these guys that like is a deep threat but also has good yak. And that's kind of like the combo we're looking for someone that could be like elite in terms of fantasy. Maybe not like super elite in the NFL, but just someone that can produce a lot of points for us in fantasy. This is someone for sure. I think this is like a good spot where when we start moving guys up in the process, it's probably gonna be like Troy Franklin who we're putting them over. If that makes sense, like he's kind of like the gatekeeper of like these upper echelon guys, I think. And if you like someone a lot more than you thought, Troy Franklin's probably gonna be the guy that moves down your rankings. But I do think he definitely has like the capabilities to be a solid NFL player for sure.
All right. All thought thing is nice. Nicely said.
I'm gonna have like 80% in best ball.
All right.
Yeah, you probably have a lot of Franklin there, K-John.
Moving on to rank number 6, we have Roma Dunze. He is he is 6'3", 215 out of Washington. He's 21 years old. He's a junior. Our collective grade for him is being bumped up a little bit. It's a 7.25. I should say weighing it down. I am weighing it down. But I guess I'll start off because I have the biggest take here, perhaps. Is that and I mean, looking at his stats, it's like and I have him at 14. It's not a good look. All right. But hey, this is what we talked about with Washington. If we look at all of their stats relative to where we have them ranked, that doesn't look great either, to be fair, honestly. But Roma, he's not bad, okay? I'm not okay to be here saying Roma Dunze is bad. I just don't think that he is as incredible as people say he is.
Well, apparently he's worse than the guy who can't get 1,000 yards in Conference USA. So
hey. I'm not here just
Listen, dude, Rome's pretty good. I don't think he's in the elite tier. That's my take. 'Cause I don't see him as one of these guys who could who could have that legendary season. I don't think he's in that tier player for me. But I do think he is really good.
I just think he's like someone that could easily be like another Jordan Addison, where he comes in, he's reliable, he does like a lot of things well. He broke out really young at 19 years old. I am concerned that he stayed all 4 years. I'm not sure if there was something else going on with that as to why he was staying in the NFL after his junior year, or why he was staying in college after his junior year and not going to the NFL. But I mean, he just impresses me in a lot of like he does, like I said, a lot of things well. He's very reliable. He had a really good dominator rating this year at 33%. And apparently, there's rumors that he was playing with a broken rib and punctured lung in late September and played through it. So I like that. I like got that dog in him. I will say like three is really high, but like the difference between one, like the 1 and 2 guys, and three is like a mountain. So I don't want to like. I've heard some crazy stuff of like people putting him as like their number 2 guy or their number 1 guy, and I think that's really fucking crazy. And I want to put him there.
Yeah, the top 2 are just untouchable, like Jesus Christ players.
I just feel like I'm gonna be clicking Rome's name a lot, and I'm gonna feel like not like good doing it. Like I feel comfortable picking him as like a rookie wide receiver to produce this year in best ball and in dynasty, of course. So
I mean, the bull case terms that he's against. I mean, the guy produced at every level against really good competition. I mean, the Washington team certainly was very good, but I mean, he was doing everything. He was taking end rounds. He was winning deep downfield. He's taking screen routes. I mean, this guy was literally doing fucking everything for this team.
yeah,
And he stayed healthy, as Carter pointed out, relatively healthy throughout it all. I mean, he can beat guys after the catch. He's beating guys before the catch. He's got good catch radius. I mean, I just don't see how he's anything other than the third wide receiver. I know we can get into talking about some of the top 2 players, certainly. I do think that gap is much closer to the 2 than it is to the 4, if that makes sense. With him, I actually I kind of tier these players, and I have them tiered with the second guy rather than the 4th guy.
You have the first guy by himself.
Yes, we'll talk about that later. But his ability to do everything without having he's got acceptable NFL athleticism, maybe an above average. It's not truly elite, freakish, but I mean he destroys every aspect of the game that you can as a wide receiver. It's crazy. He's awesome.
All right, you made him sound kind of awesome, dude.
Yeah, the whole time I was just feeling like an idiot, to be honest. Like, I have him just sit here.
You didn't see the 1,600 yards next to his name and thought that may have been a flag to say I should rank him a little bit higher.
Dude,
a lot of those are Penix.
Dude, okay. Well, listen. He's getting a huge quarterback downgrade. It's a huge quarterback downgrade from.
Yeah, right. If he goes to Caleb Williams.
From Michael Penix to Caleb Williams is a huge L.
I'm just gonna say this. Yeah, Joe, that's the other thing. You might be rooting for Romo Odunze.
No, I'm not, dude. I already flag planted this at during fucking November. If we trade Justin Fields and draft Caleb Williams, I'm A, killing myself, and B, not being a fan of the Bears.
Did you guys know that Romo Odunze was the number 1 contested, or has the number 1 or the most amount of contested catches in college football?
That's pretty good. Penix likes throwing him the ball. I don't know.
Yeah, Penix likes throwing him the coverage. It's not my problem.
Yeah, just don't pay attention to what I'm saying about Odunze. So moving on to rank number 5, we have Keon Coleman.
The GOAT. This guy's the GOAT.
This is we almost had a consensus here. I had to ruin it, unfortunately. But that's not anything bad. We all think pretty highly of Keon Coleman. He's 6'4", 215 out of Florida State, early declared 20 years old junior. Our collective grade on him is a 5.75. And this is Katron's, I feel like, firm flag plant guy.
Yeah, I love Keon Coleman. I think he looks great on tape. I think he's always open. He's really good in the red zone. There's the only thing to knock about him is that he didn't get 1,000 yards, but he's also in Florida State, and I really hated the Florida State offense. I didn't think it was that great, and
Terrible backups.
No quarterback. I think he's just awesome. His build's awesome. He's always open. What's there not to like about Keon Coleman? He's just like everything you want in a wide receiver, and he's not MHJ. He's not Neighbors. Roma Dunze probably should have been ranked higher than him. And but like he's pretty close to those guys. Like he's like in terms of like security at the position, like I would say I'm more secure in Keon translating and just being a good player and then Roma Dunze. Like Roma Dunze could just hit a bad situation, play for the Giants and get unlucky. I think Keon would still be fine.
I will say too, one thing I really really like about Keon Coleman is that he played at Michigan State his junior year or sophomore year, and he was playing with Jaden Reed, and he actually had more targets, catches, yards, and touchdowns than Jaden Reed, and we've already seen how good Jaden Reed is in the NFL.
Yeah.
And so if he was outplaying him at the college level, that's just something that gets me really, really excited for it. And his 2023 stats suck, but like we said, he lost his quarterback, and that system was just like, I don't think it was a good fit for him. And it was just kind of like a mix of a bunch of bad things to happen to him. I think he could have easily broke 1,000 yards this year if like Travis Hunter didn't get hurt and things were just going smoothly and the system was a little bit better. Which you could say that for a lot of guys, sure, but I think like he has the capability to like go for maybe more and post maybe like 12 or 1,300 yards in his range of outcomes. And yeah, I like him a lot for sure too.
Yeah, I don't have anything bad to say about Keon Coleman. I have him ranked really highly. Number 8's very high for me. And Keon Coleman, I mean, his build is there. He, again, like Carter's main point is my main point too. He played with Jaden Reed and outproduced him. And Jaden Reed is incredible. He just translated so well at the NFL level. We know Jaden Reed's a dog. So I only have the highest of expectations for Keon Coleman, and I don't really understand why people are that low on him, to be honest. I understand the concerns with the route running, because he might be like a bit of a one-trick pony with his route running type capabilities, but he's 20 and his frame and what he does like potentially at an NFL level already outproducing Jaden Reed at collegiate level, where Jaden Reed the next year declared and then produced at an NFL level. Like it only makes sense for Keon Coleman to again produce at an NFL level. So I'm in. Ian, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, the only real concerns with him are just, I think it is the separation.
Mhm.
Is he going to be able to separate at the NFL level? But certainly his ability to high point the ball is very Mike Evans, right? That's kind of the style of what we're looking for to get out of him, and that's kind of like where we would expect him to really excel at the NFL level. Like you said, body athleticism. He did play basketball at Michigan State as well, even though he's not a tight end. Apparently, tight ends are allowed to play basketball. But so yeah, it'll certainly be interesting to see at the next level where he can really expand his game, because he certainly has some elite traits that should be able to translate right from the beginning, especially with even halfway decent quarterback play.
So yeah, that's Keon Coleman. And moving on to our rank number 4 player, we have Brian Thomas out of LSU. He is 6'4", 205, 21 years old. He's a junior, and our collective grade of him is 5.5. Almost another consensus that I had to go and ruin. And yeah, I have him graded the highest. I have him graded at number 4. I think he's going to be incredible. And watching Brian Thomas's film, and we talk about the DK level type prospects, that is Brian Thomas. Like, Brian Thomas is DK Metcalf, but better. I'm not kidding. Brian Thomas will translate at the NFL level incredibly well. He has the ability to win the contested catch and blow past you, which is the exact like DK Metcalf type mold that you'd like to see at his size. And I don't see like any route where he doesn't translate incredibly well. I don't know what team or situation he could walk into other than like the nut low situation in the NFL where he doesn't translate very well. So I'm very high on Brian Thomas, and he played with obviously like one of the best collegiate quarterbacks that we've seen in a while, Jayden Daniels, in my opinion. And that might have like boosted his production for sure, especially his touchdowns. Just because he was getting so many looks. But I mean, like scoring 17 touchdowns, like not everyone is doing that. Like Brian Thomas is creating massive separation. If you go and look on his film, it's consistent that he is 3 or 4 yards ahead of the people that he's catching the ball on. And that's already before he's in stride. So like I can't say anything better about Brian Thomas. I also think the difference between him and Malik Neighbors, I think it's a lot closer than people have it to be actually being. Like Brian Thomas is really, really undersold. Like Malik Neighbors is obviously disgusting, but Brian Thomas is just like very, very criminally underrated. That's all I have to say. So we will pick it up with Ian. Why don't you start us off with some Brian Thomas?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you I think you nailed it. You know, as we've kind of been talking about through this entire video, is that he's the deep threat, right? I mean, that's at least what he is elite at. And I think he's the best wide receiver in this class at that specific skill set. You know, the size, the speed, the ability to catch at that rate. He's a really unique mover for his size at 6'4". He does some things that other guys his size are essentially incapable of doing. I do wonder a little bit, what else is he going to be able to do at the next level? He doesn't really, you know, he's not going to go inside. You know, not with his current skill set. He's not really going to get at least some immediate underneath work, but again, I think his ability to high point and work defenders into the deep and intermediate levels is going to be really special. So I certainly agree with you that he's got a really cool skill set. He's going to be special, but I think he needs to get a little more expansive in some of the things that he does. Winning inside a little bit would be kind of a start, but being as elite as he is in the things that in a specific skill set is certainly important for the NFL. And I think he'll definitely be first round talent. It might be maybe mid to later first, but so I think his landing spot could be pretty juicy right from the get go, depending on where it is.
My nut landing spot's the Bills.
Yeah, that's like an all-time landing spot if you pair those two together.
Right.
So, yeah, because I mean he's basically a jacked up Gabe Davis. Like,
Dude, yes. It just an instant, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot there'd be some really excellent opportunity there. So yeah, he could be a really, really juicy wide receiver, rookie wide receiver right out the get go.
Carter and Katron, do y'all have anything to add to the Brian Thomas bull case? No, not much.
No, he rocks.
Not
Yeah.
too much. Yeah, he's good. I mean, it's impressive he did what he did with Malik Neighbors.
LSU's printing wide receivers, buying LSU receivers right now.
Literally. Moving on, we have moving on to our top 3. This is where it starts to get exciting. And our number 3 is going to be definitely a surprise here to the masses, I would say. It's a bit of a toxic groupthink, you could say, at the moment, until it becomes like actually the gains realized. So it is at number 3, we have Ladd McConkey, who is 6 foot 185 out of Georgia. He is 22 years old. He is a junior, and our collective grade for him is a 3.25. And if you look at his production, look at his size, look at everything going for him, you're like, why the fuck do you have him graded so highly? And I'll start off because I have him graded at number 2, which, you know, it's a little controversial, but I legit think Ladd McConkey can't bust. I think he's bust proof. I think he's fully bust proof. No matter where he goes, at some point there will be him producing. And I think likely where he goes next year, he will produce immediately, because there's not a role that you could give him as a receiver where he's not going to be producing. He does everything as a receiver on the field. That's how Georgia used him. And obviously you look at his receptions and it's like, well, dude, you're saying he did everything and he had 30 fucking receptions. And it's like, sure. But if you look at his plays, it's a lot of different shit. Like he's doing a bunch of different things on the field. He is getting used in the screen game. He's getting used in end arounds. He's getting used in open space. He's getting used on flies. Ladd McConkey is getting legit used in every single way. It was just happened to so be that Brock Bowers was the giga target hog and stole away a lot of Ladd McConkey's potential targets. And that I don't think that has to do with Ladd McConkey not being good and not getting open. That's literally just have to do with QB preference, like legit. And I think that Ladd McConkey is a disgusting receiver that just already repeating that, but his burst in space is Puka Nacua like. When I saw him first on like there's this one play I was watching on film where he catches the ball in the middle of the field and it's like a curl route where he has a defender like in front of him and then to the side of him. And then he just hits him with like the quick 180 and then just bursts down the field for a touchdown. No one catches him. And you just wouldn't see that or expect that from a 6 foot 185, you know, like we wouldn't expect that for Ladd McConkey to have such a great burst, but he does. And I think that is what's going to carry him at the next level is his ability to gain 3, 4, 5 yards in quick succession and be able to hit home run plays based off of his burst. So that's my Ladd McConkey bull case.
I think you nailed it, Joe. The only concern, and I think just to touch on his production a little bit, 2021 and 2022 he played with Stetson Bennett, and then 23 he was battling injury, suppressed his production a little bit, but he was on the field. I think he nailed everything that he does well. The only little knock, if you want to give it that, is he's got a little bit of a smaller catch radius, but I think given where he's going to be on the field, I don't know if that's as important, but he's got strong hands. He has a nice way of understanding what side of zone to be on and where to stick himself and how to leverage defenders a little bit. He was playing with a freshman quarterback this past year too. So I think, and given what Georgia, again, same thing as some of the other SEC offenses we talked about, what they were trying to accomplish, he wasn't going to get a ton of opportunity, but when he did, he really excelled at it. And I think you're right, is that he's definitely going to be one of those guys where the analytics people aren't really going to love him because he wasn't able to produce and all that. But I think film people are going to be really, really excited about him. I mean, he's very similar, like you just mentioned, to Nacua.
K-Tron, why don't you talk a little bit on Ladd? You have him ranked number 3.
I mean, I think you hit it on the head. He does literally everything, and I think the fact that he was injured is a huge okay, that's why he doesn't have the stats. Like he was going up in stats. He had 58 receptions the year before. He did only get to play 1 year with this quarterback, which means there was no rapport like he had with Stetson. So, I mean, I think it's just like he was in a tough situation. He had another receiver and Brock Bowers right next to him. So, there are other mouths to feed on a not super pass-heavy offense either. It was just a lot working against him in terms of stats, and he still did everything he could, and showed it on tape.
Yep.
His catch to target ratio is crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's insane.
Everything that's thrown his way. Everything.
He catches it. It's crazy.
Carter, do you have anything to add, or should we just move on to?
No, I mean, I just think, like y'all said, pretty much echoing everything y'all said. He's just not that good, like mold, where he can be a good yak player, kind of like a Puka. Basically, you hit it, oh my god. You hit it right on the head with that one. Yeah, I love him so far. I love his film, and I've heard a lot of really good things about him from the Senior Bowl, so looking forward to seeing him.
He crushed the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he crushed the Senior Bowl. They loved him at the Senior Bowl. That was sick.
So, moving on to our number 2 ranked player. Drum roll, because for those at home, I mean, everyone knows who these last 2 players are. It's just, where did we rank them? At number 2, we have Marvin Harrison Jr., 6'4", 205, on
Yes.
in OSU.
I'm so happy this happened. Get fucked, Ian.
He is 21-year-old junior. Our collective grade him was 2 overall. I was the only one that had him not ranked outside. I had Lad higher than him, and that's just only due to my respect for Lad. It's no knock against Marvin. So, Ian, you have him graded as... It's not fucking crazy, man. You're fucking crazy. Ian, why don't you start us off? Why is Marvin Harrison the GOAT?
I mean, I don't even know where you start because there's so many different places you could start with him. Obviously, he's got the size. He's got the crazy athleticism that you want out of a wide receiver. So it's elite, high-end body movement skills. He does things that other human beings can't do, other than literally the most elite wide receivers in the NFL. He's got an insane catch radius. Um, I mean, it's kind of dumb to like think about all the things that he can do because he can literally do whatever you want him to do on an NFL field. Um, he's going to win early and often day one. I just like there hasn't really been. I mean, there's only when you start talking about how elite he is relative to other players in the past. I mean, it's been a few years since we've had kind of a guy that's good. I mean, he's better than Chase. He's um, better than like CD's class. Better than he's better than pretty much most of the wide receiver groups that we've had in the last however many years. And he came in with hype and expectation, and he did nothing but produce. Ohio State has been a wide receiver factory with Brian Hartline. I just don't see how he has anything but success in the NFL. I mean, it's crazy. He's just it, he'll do whatever you want him to do, and he'll be elite at it. I just and he's probably gonna make it look easy. That's the other thing too with him is that he plays pretty effortlessly. I want to hear. I guess.
I mean, no one's gonna say anything bad about Marvin Harrison.
Yeah.
Like it's just gonna be okay. Why do we like Neighbors better?
Yeah. Literally, yeah.
And so to answer the question, dude, I just think he's so awesome. Like he does everything. He does literally everything. But he's also got like just insane jukes, like just insane. He moves like he can move like Kadarius Toney with the ball in his hands, but he actually catches the ball. It's crazy. Like Kadarius Toney sometimes looks like just the best player. Remember that one game on the Giants where he was just fucking unstoppable? That's Neighbors literally all the time, and he catches the ball all the time.
Yeah, for me, I think like the conspiracy, like since we're already kind of talking about it, obviously Neighbors is our number one. For me, it's more so I think like Neighbors has an ability to translate at like a higher ceiling than MHJ. I think MHJ is also a super elite prospect, and like you said, I think he'd be the number one in a lot of other really stacked classes. I just think that Neighbors like their stats are so similar that you can't pull them apart. And Neighbors' game, I feel like, is better for the NFL as in the direction it's going. Is my only thing is why I like Neighbors more. But I mean, these two guys they're both monsters, and I'll be drafting them everywhere, regardless of ADP and best ball and dynasty and whatever fucking format redraft, whatever you want to throw at me. Like I'm taking them everywhere. So like it's more of a preference thing for me, I think it is, than it is like anything MHA does wrong or like Neighbors does better. I just like Neighbors' style going into the NFL more than MHA's right now.
Might as well move on. He's the number one. Everyone had him ranked number one here besides Ian, who had him at number two. I mean, there's literally no debate here, like in terms of Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, they're both fucked up. Like
yeah,
insane.
Like they're both gonna be disgusting in the NFL. Unfortunately, Marvin Harrison seems to be going to the Cardinals, which is not fun, but it's okay. Kyler
He
Murray's
could not
son
go to the
does.
Cardinals. He might not go to the Cardinals.
Kyler's gonna throw him the ball. I mean, wherever either of these guys go, they're gonna get thrown the ball.
I know, man. If he's a
lot.
Charger, how awesome would that be?
Dude, oh my God, Chargers neighbors would be electric. Oh my God.
Yeah, you're not gonna put Baker, but to me, I like, and the I'm not trying to disparage him at all, but I think this is for me is that like what I was trying to say is that I do I do think that there is a separation between Harrison and Neighbors, and I like for me when I ranked it, I sent Joe this, but I had a little bit of a tier, and I had Harrison on his own, and then I had Neighbors and Odunze because I think that much of Odunze as much as I do Neighbors, and I mean I think all three of these guys are going to be like I think they're going to be surefire, no doubt about it, players. Um, Neighbors' movement skills is, I mean, he moves better than about anybody in the class. His speed, he's electric. He's got good strength for his size. Um, I mean, he can crush you in a number of different ways. And I think one thing is too is that he's really good at not only running his routes, but he's also got a jet sweep, fly sweep type plays in him as well, and he's probably the best in the class at that. That is probably something that Harrison, I don't say Harrison can't do, but it's probably something that you wouldn't want him to do in the same way that like Garrett Wilson could probably run a fly sweep, but why would you ever want him
Yeah,
to
you're
do
not
that?
gonna call it, right?
Right. Whereas neighbors can certainly do that kind of work or play in that kind of role. Um, I do think Harrison dominates outside a little bit more than Neighbors does, especially at contested. And that has a lot more to do with their size and their builds rather than necessarily like it's not that Neighbors lacks the skill because Neighbors has elite body control. They both do. Actually, really, all three do. So there's a lot to love, and I think, and all three of these guys, and really, you're splitting hairs here between all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I certainly agree that Harrison and Neighbors are definitely the clear cut one too. But I do like Rome a lot, and I do think his name deserves to be at least near this conversation. I just throw that out there.
I mean, that's definitely worth saying, man, because
Even though Joe hates it.
I don't hate him, man. I don't hate him. I just think that they're boosted by Penix, but maybe I'm just like lower on Odunze than I should be, which definitely.
Maybe Penix just got carried by 3 really good
Yeah, imagine it's just the other way around.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. That could.
Well,
I love
Penix.
Penix.
Yeah, I'm big on Penix.
When we do the quarterback show, I'm going to be really excited to discussion about this. Let's just.
Yeah, I know. I can already tell it's gonna be an interesting Penix conversation. Yeah, we'll save that conversation for that video for sure.
How do we feel about Bo Nix?
Let's save that conversation for that video too. Yeah, I already know that's gonna be interesting too.
Yeah, I do think one of the things that's fun because is trying to project where these guys are going to land, and obviously it seems like teams are starting to position for their quarterbacks, or at least that's kind of the rumors as it were, and where and how that might affect where the wide receivers end up landing, and if it pushes them down artificially at all. So I think those landing spots are going to be pretty fun. But I know, Katron, you want one of these. I think you want Neighbors, so you can just buy a Neighbors jersey day one.
Dude, we picked Quentin Johnson last year, man. Oh my god, I almost cried on draft over Zay Flowers, man. Oh my god. And then I was just literally so right. He's literally just the worst player.
Yeah, like an interesting storyline I heard too is that Patriots might address the quarterback position in free agency, and if they do that, like Marvin Harrison could easily go to the Patriots, and I fucking hate that. And not that I would move him down the time, but like Neighbors would for sure be number one for me if like he went to the Cardinals or he went to the Chargers and Marvin Harrison's in the Patriots. You know what I mean? So like for me, a lot of this is like preference right now, and then obviously once we get to draft capital and see where these landing spots are, they could easily be flipped around. What if the Patriots take
Yeah.
Neighbors and Marvin Harrison goes to the Chargers? And
Yeah, don't talk like
for
that.
sure. You know, so there's
Well,
just,
let me
there's
ask
just
you this:
so many
when the Patriots say they're going to address the quarterback in free agency, I mean, if that was like, if that's like Kirk Cousins,
That's Gardner.
right, that's
Let's go.
It's Kirk Cousins. I like that, but
then yeah. So I mean, we said like
it
I think
depends,
it's like,
right? It
yeah,
depends.
because there's still a lot of quarterback movement to be had, and I think we still. I mean, even with the Bears, right? We still don't entirely understand what the Bears are
We
going to
Russ.
do.
Yeah, I mean, but if they get someone like fucking Ryan Tannehill, I don't.
Yeah, we're not.
So,
Yeah.
like, a lot of this, obviously, this is really, really early rankings for us, so a lot of this stuff's going to change, and I'm sure as we talk with each other more, research more, see what these guys win, and things like that, but, yeah, as a right
we'll
now,
have to-
Neighbors translation
Yeah, well,
better.
we'll have to do a post draft one of these,
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
and definitely, and so that way Joe can move up. Oh, did they? See that Luke McCaffrey is drafted in the freaking 6th round, so that way I don't have to.
Dude, it doesn't matter.
Dude, if Luke McCaffrey gets okay, first off, okay. He wanted me to get hot. He wanted me to get hot. So we're just gonna end the video there.
Hey, I had a pop off, so I was trying to get Joe to pop off.
All right, it was a good video. Thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, they're already dropping. Just me and Ian still. But thank you guys for watching, and yeah, peace.
Take care, guys.